All right, here we go. Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today, we have a special guest with us. That's right, my man, Andy Dane Carter. If you don't know who this man is, you will by the time we're done. Andy Dane Carter is a real estate mogul in Long Beach, California. But not only that, right? You think real estate guy, what do you think? Guy in a suit, super stuffy. Andy is one of the nicest, most kind-hearted men you will ever meet. And when you hear his story, you will be automatically attracted to this man. And I don't mean in a sexual way. Well, maybe, but I'm not here to judge. So that being said, I want to introduce you, my friends, to my brother, Andy Dane Carter.
What's happening, everybody? Thanks for having me, Garrett.
It's great for you to be here. Andy and I, we've known each other, 4 months now?
Yeah, 4 whole months. It feels like a lot longer, though, I got to be honest.
Doesn't it, though? Andy and I, literally, the first time that we met, it was one of those instant friendship things. We knew right away, okay, we're going to do something together. We don't know what it is. And we still haven't. But that being said,
slowly.
Yeah, we will. But he is, again, just his story is a very unique story, not different from many of you and your story when it comes to where it is that you are right now in life and what it is that you're trying to create. But prior to us recording, we had this very deep conversation, not around money, but around purpose. So you're going to want to listen in because this conversation is going to talk about purpose, a purpose-driven business and a purpose-driven life. So Andy, to start off, give these guys a little background about who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. I'll go all the way back. I was born in Long Beach, California, and my parents, when I was really young, moved to San Diego. Parents then split and got divorced when I was 4. So my mom grabbed my little brother and I, and we went back to Long Beach where she had friends and family, and we kind of started over. Problem was we were real poor and didn't have anything. So we had a little Volkswagen Bug that my mom drove, and we lived in a little teeny tiny studio apartment where we lived in the same room. And, we literally lived out of a cooler until my mom could kind of figure out some stuff. But she was a very stereotypical, hardworking single mom. Every single month was a struggle. And I got to see that when I was young. I got to see the pains and the struggles of somebody who I was very close to, just always needed money. It was always blatant that we don't have any money. We don't have any money, but we don't have money. She did the best she could, which is why, I had to grow up really fast. I was probably the oldest 7-year-old you'd have ever met in your life. And I was playing chess with the neighbors, and I just grew up fast. And
how old was your brother? What's the age gap between the two of you?
14 months. So we're basically like Irish twins. We're as close almost as you can get. And what's hilarious, because we couldn't be more different. He's 6'4", 320, and is this giant dude. And I'm 6 foot 210, and I'm the runt of our whole tribe. They're like, little Andy. And I'm like, what? So everybody in my family is gigantic. My grandfather's 6'5", my dad was 6'3". Everybody's these huge, humongous Irish dudes. So I was I was young, and so was my brother, and we just had to figure it out. We were left at home a lot, just because we couldn't afford babysitters. So the babysitter was me. So yeah. I got to learn responsibility pretty young.
So what was that like? I mean, most people they're slowly eased into this idea of hey, it's time for you to grow up. It's time for you to take on more responsibility. I remember, for me, for example, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. We didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a teacher. I do remember the food program, food stamps, whatever it was called back then, the powdered milk and the oatmeal and this stuff like that. But I did have my mother around. And so I had somebody who would chase me around the house with a 2x4 and spank me when I didn't do something right, And so what was that like for you immediately, 7 years old? Now all of a sudden it's, hey, mom's got to go to work and someone's got to watch your brother. So that pretty much leaves you.
Yeah. And it was never even So here's what's going to happen. It was never like an option, like, oh, here's plan A and here's plan B. It was just like, here's what we're doing. And it's like, I wouldn't trade a thing because it is completely like, formed this, this ridiculous work ethic I have. And it just comes from at a very, very young age. It was important for me to be like a huge protector. So I was forced to protect my brother. I was forced to protect my family. I was forced to protect my mom. I was in this space of like, okay, it's your job, even though no one ever told me. I was in that role. And then by 12, I was like working, like working.
So I want to pause real quick. Like, this is a super quick progression. And I know everybody that's listening right now, like, you guys are going, what in the hell? Like, seriously, like, this is legit. So I want to kind of pause it real quick. Most of us have fear when we start to take on more responsibility, even when we're living underneath, our parents' roof. Like, how was fear working for you? Or did you even have time for fear in your life?
I was scared as hell. And we lived in the hood, like hood. Like, I was always scared. But my fear slowly would change into this confidence. And then that kept happening to me over and over. It still does today. Like, I take the fear, and I call myself a fear hunter. I'll go and hunt my fears, and then I'll handle them like in a hunt. And then it becomes part of my armor. Like, I get afraid all the time still. And it feels like it did when I was a kid. But now I'm just a little bit older, and I know that, like, okay, this is going to serve me at a very high level as soon as I stop being afraid of this.
So it's almost like, and I want you that are listening right now, hear this. It's almost like fear becomes not an option. Like, it's mandatory for you to have in order for you to build into the man or the person that you want to be.
You have to get your life in order. And for me, like you, we've collapsed our entire lives into these 90-day blocks. And these 90-day blocks have literally given me the power to go into those fears and then know that I'm going to come out and I'm going to introduce myself into a different version of myself. So when I start this process, I'm full of fear. And that's the whole point, is I set these ridiculous targets that are so big, I have to become a different person to be able to achieve them. That's scary in the beginning. Right. But you do those things over and over again, the fear becomes the fun part. Like that feeling of like, okay, I have to do an Ironman in 90 days? Okay. Like, so, but because you've done it so many times, that there is such a carrot at the end of the 90 days that it's worth it. Even if you have to course correct because you get injured in the middle of the, sprint or the challenge or whatever you want to call it. The fear, if there's no fear, there really isn't a lot of reward. It's kind of like you don't learn shit from your wins. And I talk about this a lot from stage.
Hold on. Knowledge bomb. Say that again.
You don't learn shit from your wins.
Wow.
So I've learned this over and over again. I've learned it feels good. I've learned when I win in business that financially feels good and tastes good, but I don't learn a thing. It's just a measuring stick of all the failures. That's it. So this like weird part of me has gotten really comfortable with giving myself permission to just be on the journey. Like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to eat shit. It's going to suck. Everybody sucks in the beginning. So if you're starting something new, give yourself permission to suck, because that's the only way to get the capacity that you need. Like, I'd have never been able to 3-4 years ago run 5 companies at a high level. There was not a chance on earth. They would have all gone out of business because I didn't have the capacity. So through these challenges and through these fears and walking through them, through these multiple hunts I do a year, I get more capacity. So I can operate at a high level and still be a dad, still be a husband, still be like fit physically, and still crush it in business. Those things are in order for a reason.
Right. And I love that you said that. So he kind of hinted at some stuff that's coming, but I want to go back to when you're 12 years old, because really, like, life smacked you in the face at 7, but 12, it's like, I'm working. Like, well, so what happened when you're 12?
So for me, My mom moved us from the hood to a nicer area, and then we moved into a nicer area from there. So when I was 12, I was literally walking back from practice, and we'd always walk by this surf shop. Well, there was this wetsuit that was in the window, and it was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I was like, whoa, that thing's amazing. I think it was like $560 or something ridiculous. Might as well have been thousands to me back then.
Right.
I looked at that thing in the window, and two of my friends' parents literally drove there that night and bought them for them. And I was like, motherfucker. So I realized, I'm like, if I want that, then I'm going to have to go work and get it. So the next day, I went to all the businesses all the way around the whole area and the whole city. Nobody would hire me because I'm 12. So I went to the industrial area, and I found a silk screener. I found this dude who was doing silk screens for shirts. So he had this huge warehouse full of all these paints and chemicals and screens, and he told me I could clean these screens that were covered in paint and dried. So I had to pressure wash them with all these chemicals to get the screens clean so he could do the shirt press again over and over again. He told me to give me $20 a day. So I was like, this is amazing.
12-year-old, yeah.
So I would clean for like 4 straight hours, sometimes 5, and he'd give me $20. Then I would take that $20 and I would walk 6 blocks to the surf shop and give it to the dude. And I'd be like, I'll be back tomorrow with $20 more. And over time, I paid that thing off, and he handed me the wetsuit.
Wow.
And I was
what was that feeling like when you actually like took possession of that wetsuit?
It changed my life forever. I knew that I could have whatever I wanted if I was willing to put in the work. If I was willing to sacrifice like all this stuff with my friends and go and play and do all this stuff. I'm actually about to fucking cry right now. Like you can do anything. Like anything. Just like you believe, like I'm going to be a superhero. Like I believed from that day to right now, I can do anything I want.
Wow. Like guys, I want you to pay attention. Like if you're listening right now, think about this. At 12 years old, what were you doing? This is what I was doing. I was trying to figure out puberty, whether I like girls or not. And I was really, really into sports. That's it. That is it. Like I had no like dreams and aspirations as far as anything more than my next meal and then whether the shoes that I had put on my feet were going to fit next week or not because I was going through a growth spurt. Like that was it. And here's Andy, 12 years old, man on a mission, says, that's what I want. And then literally, instead of just saying that's what I want, puts action behind the words and shaped the rest of his life based on a decision that he made at 12.
And it was a decision that I really made when I was 5. I just went all in on my family and myself, and I was going to be a protector, and I was just going to figure this whole game out, whether I had a choice or not. And what's crazy is I had all those same things in my head that you did. I played every sport. I skated and surfed, soccer, football, baseball. I did it all. It's all about the girls. You kidding me? 12 years old, it was the greatest thing ever. And it's like that was my whole world. But there was also this part of me that was very different from my friends. It was like black and white. Like the first part is I was a terrible student, like just awful, like, cause I didn't care. So I was just like, whatever. But there was another side of me that was always the hustler, always like entrepreneur, always trying to sell, something or get something and sell this. And like, so I always kind of had that fire. But what's fascinating to me now is I have a 5-year-old little boy and a 3-year-old little boy. And I look at my 5-year-old Jackson and I'm like, brother, what's going on in your little head right now when you're watching your iPad is so different than what was going through my head when I was 5. And that's what really fuels me because I don't want him to see 1 second of how I grew up.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to. Like I work my face off to provide him certain things and ridiculous opportunities that I didn't have. At the same time, I'm not about to raise a punk either. So like there's a fine line and he knows where it is and he likes to tickle it. And then he knows like, oh shit, I crossed it a little bit. So, I'm not a soft dad, but I'm also not like a ridiculous hard dad either. I'm kind of in the middle. Right.
So let's fast forward, right? You graduated from high school, like welcome to adulthood, which you started obviously many years before, but what now? Like what happened?
So my junior year in high school, this is a funny story that I'm sure your audience will like. So I was a junior in high school and I was working at Baskin Robbins. So I went from the silk screen shop to working at El Pollo Loco. I was working the fast food, like drive-through. And I could work there when I was 14 because my friend's dad owned it. So I could get around the law and say I was 15 and a half when I really wasn't. And then I started working at 31 Flavors, Baskin Robbins, scooping ice cream.
Oh, yes.
I was the man, right? I was, like pink collared shirt, like crushing the ice cream game. So then I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. I wanted to learn what was going on with the restaurant world. So a friend of mine had this huge sports bar in Long Beach and said it'd be a good idea for me to go in there and try to be a busboy. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go apply to be a busboy. I'm going to make some tips. It's going to be awesome. I'm 17. I'm a junior in high school. I go in there, I fill out the application, all this other stuff, and they put me behind the bar. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Maybe I'm like a bar back or something, or da-da-da-da-da-da. They thought I was 21, and they thought I went to Long Beach City College, not Los Alamitos High School. So they trained me to bartend. And
so you're 17 years old, and they think you're 21, so here you go.
So instead of making $40 a night as a busboy, I'm making $240 as a bartender and getting home at 3 o'clock in the morning and then going to high school the next day as a junior. So my senior year, I was like in this weird place of like, I'm with all these college students, but I'm still in high school. So I thought my shit didn't stink and I was the greatest thing ever. Plus I was making a bunch of money. But my goal was to be a fireman or a professional baseball player. I wasn't sure which was going to go where. And then, of course, I went in a totally different direction after that. But I wasn't that into school. I was only in college to become a fireman. Like, that was it. Like, that's the only reason I was even going. And I was working at a different restaurant after that, and I was 19 at the time. And it was like a high-end restaurant. And they had like 600 bottles of wine on their wine list. I didn't know anything about wine. There was pink, white, and red. That's all I knew about wine. I went to a wine tasting that was hosted by the guy's son who actually owned the restaurant. His name was Walt Babcock, and the son's name was Brian Babcock. They owned this huge winery. And the way he was passionately talking about wine and tasting and walking us through these processes of how wine is made and like all these different things with the food, like my whole life changed. 6 weeks later, I'm in Bordeaux, France, trying to become the youngest wine sommelier in the country.
All right. So for those who are listening who don't know what that is, explain that.
Sure. So it's the hardest test you can pass. It's like the bar exam for the people in law on steroids. It's a 2-day exam. It's in front of a panel of the most sharp people in the world that are passionate about wine and wine tasting. So part of this exam is a 1-day written exam with over 300 questions where you have to know every region in the world and what grapes come from there and why and the history. And it's extremely intense, like geography and history. And then the second day is a blind tasting. So you sit down in front of 12 wines, and some are white, some are red, some are all these different things. You have to be able to look at that glass of wine and smell it and taste it and tell them what kind of grape it is, what country that grape comes from, the region within that country that grape comes from, and the year that grape was crushed and produced that particular bottle of wine and why. And you have to do it 12 times.
Wow.
And there's 10,000 different wine grapes, and they change every year. So it's extremely intense, and it has a humongous fail rate. So for me to even try to do that at 21 was a joke. Like, I was the youngest person that was in there by like 20 years taking this test. And I was one of the 6 that passed. And I was like, yes.
So at 21, you become a wine expert.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Changed an introduction at a restaurant.
Yeah. And then I took over the wine buying program at that restaurant. I created a wine program to literally help the entire staff get smarter about wine so they could sell more high-end wine at the table. So the first 6 months, I created a literal program to educate the staff and our customers, and our wine sales went up 25% in the first 6 months. That netted the owner over $1 million in sales. So I became his new best buddy. And he was my first true mentor. His name was Walt Babcock. He was a super special guy to me. I love him. He just passed away a couple years ago. but he took me like right under his wing. He taught me about real estate. He owned the land that the restaurant was on. And he would write himself a check for 25 grand every month. And he looked at me one day and he's like, Andy, always buy the dirt. He goes, if you're going to run a business, own the real estate that the business is on. And here's why. It like blew my mind when I was 20 years old.
So again, I need to pause because this is a lot of information and I already know you and I've already heard this, but I want you guys to see in a short period of time, he already acknowledged the fact that there's fear. Like, we're not even going to bring fear into the conversation anymore because we all know we have it. But he said, this is what I want to do, not what's going to get in my way, but how is it that I'm going to accomplish this? You know, thrown behind the bar at 17, gets in the restaurant game, gets introduced to this man, gets the I don't know if it's an urge, I don't know what you would call it, to go to France and take this test that most people fail and don't even attempt until they're in their mid-40s. And he's 21. Again, good enough, right? No, not for Andy. So he goes back and then implements everything that he's learned into a program that can generate income. And it does, an extra $1 million in the owner's pocket. And from there, the owner takes him underneath his wing and literally like starts to guide him in the next phase of his life. So if you're out there and you're thinking, how come things aren't happening for me? Or how come things aren't working the way I want them to? Well, congratulations. Welcome to life. But listen, what Andy did is he created value. He created value for somebody else.
That's the key.
Guess what happened? It came back 10 times over. And so now he's going to tell you this whole story about real estate, which is the market, or one of the markets that he's in right now, and why he's so successful at it. So Walt introduces you to real estate, says, buy the dirt. Probably the 3 most important words you heard in your entire life.
Yep.
So what happens?
So I'm so glad you said the part about value first, because it is my entire world. And he was willing to invest in me, he being Walt Babcock. He's the one that sent me to France. Like, he believed in me. So he invested in me. So when I came back, I invested every cent of that back into his business for him because I loved what he did for me and I appreciated it. So I over-delivered value back to him. And then it worked. And I continue to do that today with my real estate, with my investors. When I first started in real estate, and so here's a quick little story. So it was from Walt's Wharf as a wine sommelier. Then I went to go actually, like, for the first time, own my first restaurant, which was an insane thing at 24 years old. And we were doing $3 million a year. And I had, I think, 16 days off in 2 years. So I worked my face off, but I learned the business really, really well. And then from there, I was actually bought out by my partner. And then I went and traveled the world. Came back because I was offered this job to run this huge territory for this massive wine company. So I did that and got really burnt out. I had like a $3,000-$4,000 a month expense account, and I put on like 60 pounds, was really out of shape and unhealthy and just miserable. So when I was drinking like a fish, it was just a bad combination. So I hit pause and started to teach yoga and started to race triathlons, and I got really healthy. But I also got really poor because all my savings was gone because I didn't work for almost a year and a half. And then I found real estate through a really good friend of mine who was actually doing pretty well in like the worst market we'd seen in 60 years. And he's like, why don't you try real estate? He's like, you're a smart guy and you've built all this different stuff and businesses and companies before. Like, why don't you give it a shot? So I'm in my backyard, huge bonfire, and I was in a deep meditation and I just asked, like, should I do real estate? Because I just got a simple yes. I got up, I signed up online for the test. 6 months later, I'm fully licensed, and away we go. Like, I was all in. I knew I was going to be an investor from the get. That was my entire plan. I was never going to, like, here's my name, I'm Andy, and I work for First Team. Like, that was never part of the plan. So I went straight to go work for my friend's investment firm. And I learned pretty quickly I was really good on the phones. I was really good at building relationships with banks. I was really good at building relationships with all the brokers in these cities to bring us the deals first to say no to. So I went from working at this firm for free because I'm like, look, just give me a desk. I don't want anything. I just want to be in there so I can learn, and trust me, I'll over deliver. Like, just give me a shot. And he did. He literally put a desk by the front door. I mean, 6 inches that way and I'm outside. So I was barely even in the office. But what I was able to do is in 1 year go from working for free to a partner. Because I brought so much business to the investment firm. And then I got really, really good at the real estate myself. So the first month I made zero. Second month I made a little more than zero. Third month I made 2,500 because there was like a referral thing. And then the fourth month I made 50 grand. And I was just like, no, I lied. The fourth month I made 10 grand, which shifted everything. And I was like, I had a check for 10 G's in my hand. I was like, I could use more of these. And I'm telling you, this is the most fucked up part of my brain. Is I was waiting for that check for 10 grand because I'm like, I'm going to get it. It's going to feel incredible. I didn't have that thing in my hand half a second and I wanted one for 100. I was just like, this is cool, but like, what's next? Right. And then the next month was 50. And I've been closing deals like crazy. And I just learned the language of real estate. And it spoke to me. I like the math. I like the longevity of it. I like the way to build wealth from nothing to a lot. I like it that anybody can do it. I like it for the fact that like you can buy a piece of real estate, live there, rent out 2 to 3 of the units in the building and live there for free. Like, I like the options of real estate. And I use all my real estate as my bank now. Like, if I want money, I go to my real estate. Give me 400 grand so I can invest it in something else.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. So you go through this. I mean, we condensed, how many years did we just talk about from when you were owning your restaurant to like where you are? Like, how many years have we just slammed into 5 minutes?
So 24, I owned my restaurant. I owned it for just about 3.5 years. At 26, I was working for this large wine distributing company, was there for almost 4 years. And then at 30, I was not working. At 31, I was all in on real estate. And fast forward 10 years, I'm now 41, almost 42. My life looks very, very different. So you can go from broke as shit to like retired in 5 years if you really, really want to.
If you really, really want to.
But it's the really, really want to part. And what are you willing to sacrifice to get there?
There's always a price.
There's always a price. And like, that's a huge part of this thing. Like, what is really important to you? And what was important to me was to get my family so secure that we could withstand any storm.
So we skipped over, like we got the business version of where your life is at. And actually there's more than that going on right now, but we'll come back to that. But like, let's talk about you personally. Like, you got burnt out. You're talking about fat and overweight, drinking like a fish. Like, what was it that actually shifted your life? Like, what did you start focusing on that allowed you to not just make money, because you've made money before and it burnt you out, but like make money with a purpose?
Right. So I didn't have any purpose. My purpose was wrapped up in my ego. My whole, like, worth was all wrapped up in this, like, I'm the wine guy. Everybody knew me, as the wine guy. So my identity was in that job because, I was that guy. I was rolling around in a suit every day, with my wine bag and my expense account and my, all my stuff. And I was making all this money, I'm the man. Problem was I was broken inside and was going through an incredibly painful divorce because we were both drinking too much. We were both partying. And my pain finally got so big that it was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not healthy. Something bad is going to happen. So I hit pause, went to rehab so I could like really try to figure out like, okay, is it the drinking? And then I found out when I was there, it wasn't. It was all the stuff that was compiled into why I was drinking. And then I got to those roots. Like, I got to really like dump out that bag and look at it. I'm like, okay, cool. Now that we're here, let's go ahead and do a little dissection of what's going to serve me and what's not. So all of this stuff that is like literally kept me in this like victimhood and victim mentality. Like, oh, my dad doesn't talk to me and he's a dick. Like, so what? Like, everybody has stuff. Like, so I had to just do a lot of like self-forgiveness, but I had to do a ton of external forgiveness. I'm like, dude, this person, like, they were in your life on purpose, for purpose. So like, that's what happened. And then I had to really shift my thinking of like, what do I want? I want to be healthy, first and foremost. I want to be of value to this planet. I don't just want to be somebody who like stacks up all this money like Scrooge McDuck and I'm swimming in my gold and like I don't care about a person, because it's not how I'm built. I'm actually the exact opposite. I will give you the shirt off of my back. So I had to switch that, but I had to go through the pain first because I'm too fucking dumb to not do it the easy way. So I do it the hard way. But I got this incredible lesson. So I had to start to live my life with purpose. And when that happened, everything changed forever.
That's beautiful. I mean, and all of you are hearing him say this, and I know you're amazed because I'm sitting here and like I'm exactly the same. But I want to ask you, if you're listening right now, what parts of Andy's life can you see yourself going through right now? Like, he talks about the stuff that's holding him back, literally the backpack of pain from our childhood or from people who have wronged us. We hold on to this backpack thinking that somehow this is going to make us stronger by carrying this backpack. And the truth is, all it does is weigh us down. So the first thing that Andy had to do was literally drop the backpack and get rid of it, right? And he talked about internal forgiveness and then forgiving those around him who had harmed him. He did have a rough childhood. His dad was a dick. I mean, there's no way around that, but cool. Like, are you going to keep holding on to that? Or are you going to let it go so you can start to move forward? And I love what you said, which is I had to figure out what I wanted. And a lot of us get stuck there. What do I really want? Because you'll never figure out the how if you don't know what. So the what always comes first. And so Andy figured out he wanted to live a life on purpose. And you can, and Andy has done this, you can have a business, i.e. profits, with purpose. It does exist. But you have to be in alignment first because the business comes after.
You have to have clarity. Without clarity of decision and clarity of thought and clarity of direction, you are lost. How do I know? Because I've done it a lot. That's how. I do it a lot less now because of the tools that I've learned. But, you know, you made a very good point. Like, you can do this, but you have to be clear on where you want to go. I've never figured out the how first. I figured out what I was going to do and always have. All the way back to the wetsuit. There's the wetsuit. I'm going to get it. Like, that's my end result. It's right in front of me. Now I'm going to put all the tools together to do it. Wine sommelier, same thing. I'm going to wine tasting in Southern California. I need to go to the wine mecca. 6 weeks later, I'm in Bordeaux. Like, that's because I looked at the end and every decision I made, I did it all in reverse. I reverse engineered everything. I still do today. And I'm like, okay, I want to own $900 million in investment real estate. I don't start with the like, all right, I'm going to extrapolate on how I'm going to do the first deal. No. I put it out there that this is what I'm going to do. And then every decision I make from that point forward is mapped towards that goal. It makes it really easy for me to take meetings with a yes or a no. Is this going to help me get to my goal? Yes or no? The answer is yes, I take the meeting. The answer is no, I don't.
Ooh, there's some strategic tactics right there.
Mm-hmm.
Most of you are living your life with no clear purpose and no clear goals. And then you wonder why you don't ever get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, Andy's got super clear on what he wanted. And now every decision he makes is a yes or no. Is this going to take me where I want to go? Yes or no. Is this meeting? Yes or no. Is this business transaction? Yes or no. Like, what price can you put on that clarity, Andy?
It's the most valuable thing in my life outside of my children and my wife. Because without the clarity, you have no direction. It is the recipe for anxiety and depression. If you're struggling with anxiety and depression, because I did immensely in my life, I have breathed tattooed in 7 different languages on the inside of my arm to remind me to breathe, so I have panic attacks, because I used to. I haven't had them in years, but believe me, they were gnarly. All because I didn't have clarity. I wasn't clear on where I wanted to go. So that festered these physical emotions in my physical body that weren't real. I created them with my mind, which led me to believe if I created them with my mind, I could fucking crush them with my mind too. And I did. But it took some training. I leaned into mentors. I surrendered to the process of figuring myself out. And I didn't wait until I was on my deathbed. And I'm like, no, I'm going to figure myself out in my 30s so I don't thrash my kids in my 40s.
Beautiful. I love that. So let's talk about where you're at like today, because I don't think people really understand who you are. And again, for you, like if you're listening right now, this has nothing to do with ego. This has nothing to do with anything other than I want you to see a man whose father abandoned him at 5, who was working at 12, like even with everything that life threw at him, where he's at right now and where he is that he's going. So where is it that you're at right now, Andy?
I'm at a very fun place. It's an exciting place for me, but it's a very fun place because it's been 3 straight years of working my face off towards a goal that some people told me that I couldn't do, or that it was a bad idea. And it was this journey of building a personal brand and what that really looks like in 2018, and why, in 2015, I was woke up in the middle of the night feeling like the market was leaving me behind, because my entire world was wrapped up into these 12 investors. I didn't have a website. Nobody knew me outside of a few zip codes, because that's where I focused on. And my whole world was literally based on these 12 men. If they decide to stop investing in real estate, my whole game is over. And it scared the shit out of me. I also knew I had a lot of value to give this planet, and I wanted to help people like my mom, that there's a different way. If you're a single mom or a single dad, or you're married and you're struggling, do you know that it's possible to put 3.5% down and buy a fourplex for $700,000 if you're only qualified to $400,000? Because the bank looks at the income from the other units as your income. And now you're qualified to more. So you can save $20,000 and literally buy a $700,000 fourplex, live in one of the units, rent out the other 3, and live for free. When I was sitting in that boardroom and those lenders were talking about this, I stood up and went like this. I'm like, nope, hold on. What are you guys talking about? And then I said, why isn't everybody doing this? Was years ago. I go, how come no one's doing this? They're like, well, it's just not with that, common. I'm like, why? This could change poverty in our country. I'm like,
I'm going to stop you real quick because I want to make sure that you guys are paying attention. He's literally giving you the key to eliminate generational poverty, to eliminate it. Doesn't matter how you grow up, where you grow up, the circumstances, it doesn't matter. There's a way to get out through real estate, and Andy holds that key. And he's going to give it to you.
I'm going to give it to you. And if you go to my website, I don't want to plug anything because it's all free. Go to my website, andydanecarter.com. Download the digital copy of my book, 100 Doors, for free. It's the blueprint to all of this. There's a chapter in there that talks about Cleveland because we went in there and tested it in Cleveland. So there are people, 4 generations of renters, that are literally paying $500 to $600 a month in rent for generations. They're just poor. They're living in these little duplexes all over the city. I went in there and told them, what if I was to tell you that if you bought this duplex for $45,000 that you live in, you put down $3,000, that your $600 covers the whole mortgage and taxes and expenses. So your tenant that lives right next door on the other wall, that's paying $600, covers all of your bills. And now you live for free. Their minds were blown. And I'm like, if you don't believe me, that's cool. Go to your local bank and ask them. And that started this thing for me. And now I'm talking about it with everybody because I want people to know there's options. I don't care if you're rich. I don't care if you're poor. I don't care if you just got divorced. I don't care what your thing is. My whole thing is don't buy a house. Your first piece of real estate should never be a house. It goes against everything you're taught. But when you buy a house, there's one door, and the bank owns that door. Your name's on title, but the bank actually owns it until you pay it off.
Right.
When you own a fourplex, you have 3 other families helping you pay for that one mortgage. So if you have one door and your wife loses her job, you lose your job, God forbid something happens to your kids, the bank takes that back and now you're host for 7 years or longer. If you have a fourplex and something happens, who gives a shit? These 3 families are paying your mortgage and you're living for free until you figure it out. Who cares if you lose some money on paper? Who cares if you lose some equity? Can you survive the correction? With a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, the answer is yes all day long. When you have a house, you start like selling your motorcycle, selling your bike, selling your cars to cover a mortgage of a house you're never going to be able to get out of.
Yep.
And these scumbags that are in my world of real estate are like, hey, let me help you. Like, no, I'm cool. Like, they give you bad advice.
Yeah. Double, triple mortgage here. Let's add some more debt onto you because that's going to solve your problems.
The number 1 divorce rate in our country's history was 2008, 9, and 10. Was that because like everybody was just mean then? Or was it it was an economical collapse that led to 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds like me getting into a split home scenario like I did? That fast forward 10 years, now they're 13 and 14 and they're in high school eating pills like Tic Tacs, ODing across the country because mom and dad couldn't afford to fucking like figure it out. This is an epidemic that could have been prevented, but a lot of it is the seed from the real estate crash.
Exactly. So listen, I want to thank Andy for being on the show today. Again, what's the site that they need to go to if they want to learn how to implement this process?
It's very simple. It's just my name, Andy Dane, D-A-N-E Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. It's the same on all my social media handles. We have tons of free content on my YouTube channel, which is just my name again, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. A lot of stuff is for free on my website. You just got to go grab it.
Beautiful. So listen, go follow Andy, right, on social media. You're going to want to do this because he provides so much value to you. Like, listen, he's not telling you something that he's not doing right now. Like everything he teaches you is something that he's done or is currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to the man. But on a bigger note, like if you're stuck right now and not able to figure out what to do with your business, if you're not able to figure out what to do with your life, if fear is still that big roadblock keeping you from what you want, like there's a way around it. There really is. Okay. And Andy talked about this at the beginning. There's a strategy, there's tactics to this. And that's why I created the Tactical Businessman. It's this experience that allows you to understand what your roadblocks are and then how to get through them. Because at the end of the day, you can watch all the motivational videos you want. You can listen to all the people you want. And at the end, nothing's going to change until you learn how to implement a plan of attack.
Motivation dies very, very quickly. Without being strategic and tactical in business or in life in general, you're just literally waking up hoping every day. Instead of knowing what your results are going to be, you're hoping and guessing. That feels terrible.
Exactly, because hope is not a strategy.
No.
So go to thetacticalbusinessman.com, thetacticalbusinessman.com. If you got any specific questions about things, anything you want to ask me, send me a message, Gerritt, Gerritt at warriorguardian.com. Again, Andy, thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it. And we will be seeing you soon. Take care.
Thanks, brother.